Hi everyone, Jennifer Eklund here. I'm really glad that you're interested in my new piece called Above and Beyond. And I wanted to give both students and teachers some suggestions for improvisation activities to do with this piece. The piece itself is quite a simple, late beginning level pop style solo. And I want you to think of it as kind of like the foundation for the house we're going to build. So, for late beginners who are in Piano Pronto level movement 1, this piece is a perfect fit. But you can also use this piece for your early intermediate level students, intermediates as well, and I'm going to show you some ways to kind of dress up and decorate the house a little bit. And these are all included in the Improv activity sheet that you get with purchase. So the first thing that you can do, and we're going to call this add-on number 1, is you can increase the harmonic rhythm in the bass clef to half notes. So if you look at the piece, pretty much we have whole notes in the bass clef throughout. So the first easy thing you can do to dress this up is increase that harmonic rhythm to half notes. And it'll sound like this. Sounds a little bit fancier than the original version just by increasing that harmonic rhythm in the bass clef. Another thing you can do is you can add some bass clef notes in places where there's open spaces. A good example of this is measure 12, when you have that little riff in the top. I like to add an extra little C chord at the end of that measure going into measure 13 just to give it a little bit more of a push. So instead of this, which is fine, that's the original version, this adds that extra little chord at the end of measure 12. Okay, so it just gives it a little bit more of a groove. Alright, so that's add-on number 1, increasing the harmonic rhythm. And that's Daisy. Add-on number 2 is that you can start to add inner voices to the melody. Okay, and by this I mean adding intervals underneath where that melody line is in the treble clef. So instead of the bare bones melody, which is this, fine on its own. But with add-on number 2, you can add some intervals underneath and see how it kind of flushes things out. So this is a nice way for students to kind of start to get to know their intervals better and to get to know which intervals work well with chords. And I should say that with all of these add-ons, I would really prefer if students kind of improvise these ideas on the spot instead of writing them into the music. Now, if you have students who are completely freaked out by the idea of improvisation, that's fine. Go ahead and have them kind of jot in these little extra additions. But I want you to encourage them to kind of, step outside their comfort zone and do some of these things on the spot. I know that I always wanted to, learn how to improvise when I was younger, but I didn't have teachers who really introduced that idea to me. So when I got into college and I really wanted to play in a jazz band, they kind of just threw me into the fire. And then I was terrified because they said, okay, go, start soloing, and I had no idea what they meant. So I feel like with students, if you give them sort of these basic guidelines and kind of a framework to work within, the idea of improvisation isn't about, a scary thing where you're just kind of left on your own to fend for yourself. You kind of have these basic building blocks and ideas of how to improvise. And it usually kind of tempers the experience so that it's a little less scary. Okay, so add-on number 2, once again, is adding those inner voices below the melody. Alright, so for your intermediate level students who can span the octave with their left hand, what I want them to do with this piece is to, number 1, analyze the chord structure. So they're going to write in chord symbols up above the measures, just like you'd see in a lead sheet or in a piece of pop vocal music. And then what I'd like them to do is, instead of playing the blocked chords, them to play those Eklund patterns that you see in all of my intermediate lyrical pieces, and I want them to arpeggiate the chords, putting the fifth of the chord in the middle. So you end up with okay. So now you can do that, and again you can kind of mix and match all of these add-ons. So if you want to just keep the melody simple and use the arpeggiated chords, you end up with this. To take it a step further, excuse me, you can add those inner voices underneath the melody, and you end up with something like this. Really nice. If you have students that are comfortable doing that, some more advanced ideas you can talk about. You can talk about substitution chords, passing chords, and smooth bass line movements. Again, these are sort of more advanced topics that you can take on a case-by-case basis. So, the final add-on with this piece is that intermediate level students can use the repeated section from measure 9 through measure 24 as a solo improv section. And again, to kind of take the fear out of this, on the worksheet, I've given you some ideas of how to approach this. So you're not just telling a student, go back to measure 9 and make something up on the spot, because for most students that's going to be a little bit terrifying. So one of the ideas that I want students to use on their first go-around is to just kind of alter the rhythms of the main melody, but don't change too much, just alter the rhythms. So instead of this, and this is from measure 17, the original version is here. Maybe something they could do to alter the rhythm on that solo is to just change up those rhythms and make them a little bit more syncopated, something like this. Altering the original form a bit, but it's not an entirely made-up improvisatory section. And then if they're feeling really brave, some other ideas that they can play around with is they can play with the octave placement of that main melody. And then of course the step beyond that is for them to just kind of make up their own solo section. So really from measure 9 through measure 24, a student could basically go round and round and round in that section as many times as they feel comfortable, using those little stepping stones, first altering the rhythm, then playing around with the octave placement. And then finally, the suggestion I give in the worksheet is to come up with some sort of rhythmic or melodic snippet and kind of stick with it and see how that reacts underneath with the chord structure underneath. So something like this. And then repeating that same idea. Soloing, then they can just go ahead and tag on to measure 25 and finish the song out. So I hope this is a helpful tutorial for both teachers and students to have some ideas about how to go above and beyond on my new pop solo, Above and Beyond. Thanks for watching.